If you're in a leadership position, today's video is for you. We are talking about why AI governance is going to define leadership success in 2025. I'm Rachel Krevling. I'm an AI consultant and business strategist. Let's get into it. We're going to cover 4 things today: why you need to start, how exactly to start, who is doing a really good job at this, who can you kind of look to for guidance, and what tools you can use to get things off the ground. So let's go. So let's begin with why. You might remember about a year ago, a well-known travel company made a massive error unintentionally, but their chatbot sent a bereaving customer a promo code because it wasn't a human. It didn't understand the nuance of why that person's flight was canceled, and it created immediate public backlash. Why is that? It's because the leadership had failed to put in place AI governance from the beginning. They had to scramble to fix the problem and clean up the messes instead of preventing the messes. That is just one example of the kinds of challenges leaders are going to face and are already facing as AI changes the way that businesses operate. Today, let's talk about how you can put some guardrails in place to prevent these kinds of messes. Leaders who responsibly and transparently create a plan and then execute it carefully are absolutely going to set themselves apart. Why is this leadership going to be so rare? The promise of streamlined operations, enhanced customer service, boosted bottom lines, it all sounds great, but it often feels out of reach for most organizations. Why? Well, even the most proactive leaders face organizational roadblocks. Budget constraints, internal silos, red tape, all of these things make rolling out a company-wide system very daunting. Then you add in the fear of what could go wrong. You've got AI missteps with biased algorithms. You've got privacy breaches. You've got compliance violations, PR disasters. The list goes on. Now, these are all errors that humans can also make, right? We've seen this for decades in corporate structures, but it's still easy to see why leaders might hesitate to integrate this new technology. But here's the reality. Leaders who create a plan now will dominate, while those who don't risk irrelevance. This is not an organizational add-on situation. This is a fundamental shift in the way that business will be run, creating an opportunity for leaders to make lasting impact. Delaying action until poor performance or compliance forces your hand is a risky bet. When it comes to incorporating AI on the corporate level, reactive leaders are going to end up struggling to compete, while proactive leaders will have already solidified their place as a trustworthy innovator by putting a system in place that can thrive in this new era of business. There are 3 reasons why AI governance is a leadership imperative in 2025. The first one is about protecting trust. Trust is the currency of leadership. And right now, AI governance and missteps due to lack of governance is the fastest way to burn trust among your employees. Overlooking the fact that your team is using these tools, even informally, during their workday is risky. Failing to provide even basic AI guidelines leaves your team and your organization vulnerable. And that's regardless of whether or not you're in a heavily regulated industry. For companies who are using AI beyond drafting presentations and emails, the stakes are even higher. Leaders are responsible for ensuring that AI systems align with their organization's values and don't create harm for employees, customers, or stakeholders. Whether it's a biased hiring algorithm or an inaccurate recommendation engine, AI missteps can create a ripple effect that touch every corner of your business, just like human missteps can. And that leads us into the second reason why leadership is so imperative when it comes to AI governance. AI governance requires cross-functional leadership. What do I mean by that? Well, mainstream AI ads may have you thinking that it is defined to the IT department, but the best use cases to date indicate that its impact spans marketing, operations, HR, and customer service, to name a few. Leaders in all areas have to collaborate to make sure that the AI systems are effective and ethical, and this requires a cross-functional approach. A shared understanding of the AI governance principles and a commitment to implement them across the board is key. So you see where I'm going with this. It requires a top-down approach. You must integrate this into the company's framework at its core. Now let's talk about the third reason this is so imperative, and it's because the stakes are higher than ever. Leaders who fail to implement AI governance systems face more than reputational damage. They face financial penalties. There are already cases pending, and in 2025, regulation may catch up with innovation. There's a misconception that companies cannot be held liable for AI misuse. The reality is there are a host of compliance bodies that can levy fines when AI goes wrong relating to privacy data, security issues, information sharing, prejudice, the list goes on. Companies will be held accountable for mistakes that their AI systems make, whether or not formal AI-specific legislation comes this year or next or never, because these compliance bodies already exist. Now let's cover 4 things that leaders can do to excel with AI governance. Even if your company is just using it for basic things like drafting emails, this does apply to you. There are 4 things to take into consideration. First, make AI literacy and governance part of your strategic planning and key performance metrics. This isn't just about compliance, it's about making sure that your company is prepared to evolve and innovate ethically. Number 2, build governance frameworks that work. What does that mean? Well, responsible AI requires oversight, and that must include leadership. Establish an AI ethics committee or designate governance leads in each department. Leaders need to be active participants, not passive overseers in this process from now on. Number 3, you've got to prioritize transparency. Sometimes you're going to have to ask the hard questions, but that's okay. Ask things like, how does the algorithm make decisions? What data is it using? How do we audit it? How do we explain its outcomes? Ask the questions. You don't need to be a data scientist to demand clarity. Your role is to ensure that these systems and how your teams use them align with your organization's mission and goals. That leads us into number 4. You have to lead by example. You model ethical decision-making in the use of your own AI tools. Encourage open conversations about risks and opportunities. With big change comes the reminder that accountability starts at the top. While integrating AI into your framework may seem like a huge undertaking, it really isn't, because you don't have to start from scratch. Look to the frontier models and tech giants for guidance. There are a handful of people who are setting the standard for how this should be done, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. For companies seeking to integrate AI on a large operational scale, there are tools available to assist with risk mitigation and oversight. Think of this software like you would any other compliance measure. For example, there's a lot of data to indicate that financial institutions who use insurance tracking software significantly reduce their regulation risk, as opposed to banks who still do that oversight manually. There are a number of tools that you can leverage here. Here's a 5-step leadership checklist for AI governance. 1. Understand its current impact on your business. Is it already being used? Should it be used? What are the potential opportunities and risks? 2, AI literacy. Educate yourself, educate your teams, stay up to date on current regulation. 3, create a governance framework. Develop a process for evaluating, deploying, and auditing your systems. 4, engage cross-functional teams. Make AI governance a shared responsibility across leaders and departments. Recognize that this will also inevitably lead to better performance as teams become less siloed and more collaborative with the data to support them. And 5, communicate transparently. Share everything with everyone, your stakeholders, your employees. Keep the lines of communication open because this is a big change and people want to know what's going on. The companies that succeed in 2025 won't be the ones that just integrate AI. They'll be the ones that do so with a framework for success at the core of their strategy. Leadership in this new era doesn't necessarily require more technical knowledge, but it absolutely requires an eagerness to responsibly adopt the tools that will make or break the next iteration of your business. We're at an inflection point where any leader can set themselves up for success with effective AI governance. And by this time next year, we will be able to see who missed the boat. In 2025, AI governance won't just define technology, it will define leadership. Will you be ready? I'm Rachel Krevling. I build streamlined, data-driven systems that help companies grow. If you need help with any of this, you know where to find me.